It's Monday morning. You got your coffee. You're feeling, well, as good as you can on a Monday. You sit down, you open your PRQ, and there it is. Branch name, codex / something. 200 and something files changed, 40,000 lines of new code, description, nothing. Just the bug fix and new feature checkboxes are checked because of course they're both checked. 40,000 lines. Every box checked, none of it done. You haven't even opened the diff yet and you already know exactly what you're looking at. You know because of the branch name. You know because the person who opened it is a co-founder who's not technical. You know because the bug bot has already started leaving comments and the comment count is climbing while you watch. You know because there is no description, no context, no explanation of what problem this is actually solving or why it touches what appears to be a core piece of the application. You know because you've seen this pattern before. Everyone has seen this pattern before. It just usually comes from a junior engineer at 2 a.m, not from a co-founder on a Monday. And here's the thing. This episode is not about whether AI should write code. It can, it does, and sometimes it does it well. This episode is about what happens after. Welcome back to Chaotic Commits. I'm Joanne, honest stories of building in modern tech. Today's episode is called Merge Conflict, when the diff is 40K lines and the author is the owner. And I want to talk about something that is happening at a lot of companies right now. Something that has a name nobody is quite saying out loud yet. It's not vibe coding. Vibe coding is actually fine. AI writing code is fine. What I want to talk about is what I'm going to call accountability debt. The gap between who gets the efficiency win from AI generated code and who owns it when something goes wrong. Because spoiler, they are not the same person. So let's get into it. Let me tell you how I know a PR was vibed before you even open the diff. The branch name is the first tell. Codex something, cursor something. The AI leaves fingerprints, and experienced engineers have learned to read them. Second is the author. Not because non-technical people shouldn't use AI tools, they absolutely should. That's actually a remarkable shift in what's possible, because a non-technical author on a 200 file PR touching a core piece of the application is a specific combination of facts that should make every engineer in the review queue stop and ask some very direct questions. Third tell is the checklist. Not the absence of one. There was a checklist, tests written, DB migrations validated, the actual gates, and every single box was checked. That is the tell, not a missing process. A process that existed, had teeth, and got treated like a form to complete. Someone who doesn't understand what they're attesting to can look fully compliant while bypassing the entire point. Checked is not the same as done. The boxes don't know the difference. And here's what the bugbot comment spiral tells you. It tells you that the code was generated, something in the automated review found issues, and then AI fixed those issues, which created new issues, which the AI also fixed, and somewhere in the loop, the diff went from maybe manageable to 40,000 lines and still growing. That's not a code review. That's a conversation between two AI systems that nobody is supervising and nobody fully understands. Now, I want to be fair here. None of this is evidence of bad intent. The co-founder almost certainly looked at this and thought, look how efficient I was. Look how much I shipped. I solved the problem. I did it fast. That is genuinely what he was trying to do. And I understand. You're at a startup. You got to move fast. You got to ship. No, stop. That's wrong. Let me be precise about what I'm actually objecting to here, because I think the framing matters enormously. I'm not saying AI should not write code. It should. I use it. The teams I've led use it. AI is changing what's possible in software development, and most of the change is good. What I'm objecting to is a specific failure that AI makes easier than it used to be. Generating code you don't fully understand, at a scale you couldn't have reached manually, in a system you don't maintain, for a team you don't work alongside. Before AI, a non-technical co-founder could not have produced 40,000 lines of code over a weekend. The physical constraint of human typing speed was a natural governor on the size of the problem. That governor is gone, which means the discipline that used to be enforced by constraint now has to be enforced by judgment. And judgment requires understanding what you're doing and who has to live with it. Here's the specific list of problems with that PR as it stands. It is unmaintainable. 40,000 lines of generated code with no documentation, no inline explanation of decisions, no context for why specific choices were made. When something breaks, and something will break, the engineer debugging it at 2 a.m. has no trail. They're reading code that was written by a model that is no longer available to explain itself, opened by someone who doesn't fully understand it, in a system that has now been fundamentally changed. It is not broken in reviewable pieces. A good PR tells a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can read it and understand what changed and why. A 200 file, 40K line PR is not a story. It's an archaeological dig. No reviewer can meaningfully approve this. They can look at it. They cannot review it. And it skips the actual work. The right answer here, the thing that would actually help the team and the product, is to understand what problems exist, write tickets, and let the engineers who maintain this system solve those problems with full context. That is slower. It also is the only way to end up with a system anyone can support. Let me walk you through what happens if this PR merges as is. It goes to production. Maybe it's fine for a week, maybe it's fine for a month, but at some point, because complex refactors of core application logic always has edge cases, and this one was generated iteratively by a model without full system context, something breaks. The co-founder is not on call. He's not on call because he's a co-founder, and co-founders are just not on call. He's also not on call in a more fundamental sense, that he does not have the mental model of what this code does, because he did not write it. The AI wrote it. He directed it. Those are different things. So the alert fires, it goes to your team, and your team opens the code, and there's no documentation. There's no explanation of why a particular function was written the way it was written. There's no Git history that is meaningful because the entire thing was committed in one enormous chunk. There is no person to call who understands it because the person who opened the PR cannot explain it, and the model that wrote it is gone. This is what I mean by accountability debt. The efficiency was captured upstream. The cost is paid downstream. And the people paying the cost are not the people who made the decision. This is not unique to AI. Technical debt has always worked this way. The thing AI changes is the scale and the speed. What used to take months of accumulated shortcuts can now happen over a single weekend. The debt that can be generated faster than an organization can recognize is accumulating. And here's the part that makes this particular situation harder than a normal technical debt conversation. The process existed. The checklist was real. Tests written. DB migrations validated. The actual gates your team built to catch exactly this kind of thing. Every box got checked. The person holding the PR is not a junior engineer you can sit down with and say, walk me through how you verified this. The person holding the PR is the co-founder, which means the follow-up questions, the ones that would have surfaced, that none of it was actually done, ran directly into a power structure. The checklist couldn't hold because the person who could enforce it couldn't have that conversation. This is the part I actually want to spend time on because it's the part that's the hardest and the part that gets skipped in every conversation about AI code quality I've ever seen. How do you push back on the owner of the company? And I don't mean that rhetorically, I mean it practically. What are the actual tools available to you when the person holding the 400K line PR is the person who signs the checks? Let me start with what doesn't work. Appealing to engineering best practices in the abstract. That doesn't work. This doesn't follow our process. It's a sentence that sounds reasonable and lands nowhere when the person you're saying this to is the person who owns the process. This needs more documentation. Can be dismissed as perfectionism. This should be broken into smaller PRs. Sounds a lot like bureaucracy to someone who's looking at working features and wondering why engineers are making everything complicated. What has a better chance of working is framing the risk in business terms, not engineering terms. The question is not, does this code meet our standards? The question is, who owns this system after it merges? Because that is a business question. That is a support cost question. That is a what happens to our on-call rotation when this breaks and nobody understands it question. That is, what does our incident response time look like when the person who wrote this can't explain it question. If you can make the co-founder see that the PR creates a liability that lands on his engineering team, the team he's paying, rather than on himself, that is a more productive conversation than any appeal to process. The second thing that works better is offering a concrete alternative. Not, this is wrong, here's what right looks like. The alternative in this case is real and not complicated. Let's understand what problems actually exist, write tickets, let the team who owns this part of the application solve those problems with full context. That is slower in the short term. It produces code that someone can maintain, debug, and understand. That is the trade. For engineers in the room who are not the manager, the ICs who have to review this, who have to leave comments on a 200 file PR knowing that the author is a co-founder, the tools are narrower, but they exist. You can ask questions instead of making statements. Can you help me understand what this function is doing here? It's harder to dismiss than this is undocumented. You can be specific about the risk rather than general about the quality. I'm not able to tell from the diff whether the cache invalidation logic has changed, which would affect the billing flow. It's a concrete concern that requires a concrete response. What you cannot always do is win. Sometimes the PR merges. Sometimes the co-founder has the authority and the confidence and the momentum, and the thing goes in. And when that happens, the job shifts to documentation, making sure there is a record, that concerns were raised, that review flags specific risk, that the team objections were visible, not just as a CYA exercise, though it is that too, but because when something breaks, the conversation about what to do next goes better if the concerns were named in advance. I said at the top that this episode is not about whether AI should write code, and I meant it. AI is going to write more code, not less. The co-founder with the 40K line PR is not an anomaly. He is a preview. As AI tools get better, this is going to happen more. People with authority and access and urgency will be generating large amounts of code that other people have to own. The question is not how to stop it. The question is how to build the structures that make it survivable. And I want to be specific about what survivable actually looks like, because better process is not the answer. It's a placeholder. What actually helps, the conversation about ownership happens before the merge, not after. Before the merge, you still have a standing to ask who's going to debug this at 2 a.m. After the merge, the question is a postmortem. Documentation standards that apply to AI-generated code the same way they applied to human-generated code. Not because AI code is inherently worse, but because the engineer inheriting it cannot tell where the model left off and the judgment began. The standard has to be consistent regardless of who or what wrote the code. PR templates that mean something. And here's what this story tells you about. This PR had one. Real checkboxes. Test written. DB migrations validated. Every gate your team designed was there. Every box was checked. None of it was done. A template can be completed by someone who didn't do the work is not a gate. It's decoration. The template is not the solution by itself. Enforcement has to be part of the structure. Someone with standing has to be able to ask, walk me through how you verified this, and have that question stick. If the answer is, I trust the AI, the box does not get checked. And review gates that care about comprehensibility, not just correctness. A passing test suite means the code does what the test says it does. It does not mean a human can read it, reason about it, or debug it under pressure when the alert fires and the co-founder is busy co-founding. Those are different bars. If your process only has one of those bars, it has made a quiet decision about what it actually values. The co-founder in the story is not a villain. He is a person who used the tool efficiently and did not think about the downstream costs because the downstream cost doesn't land on him. That is a structural problem, not a character problem. And structural problems get solved with structure, not with individual acts of courage in code review. The PR is still open. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is name the problem clearly. Put it on the record, then make a decision about where you want to spend your energy. What I have is this. The fact that it's unresolved doesn't mean you are losing. It means you were in the fight. And being in the fight is the work. Naming the problem clearly, framing it as a business risk, putting the concerns on the record, not just writing good code, protecting the conditions that make good code possible. That's senior engineering. That is engineering leadership. And it is significantly harder than anything the bug bot can fix. That's this episode of Chaotic Commits. I'm Joanne. New episodes wherever you get podcasts. I'll see you there.